Thanks so much for being with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. I'm Joy Lim Nakrin here with attorney Josh Schiffer. Thanks so much for being with us, Josh.
Hey, happy Tuesday. A hot one out there in court and out.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got a number of issues that we want to get to today. First of all, let's talk about Justin Ross Harris. So this was the father who was convicted in the hot car death, essentially, of his child. You may remember this case that we've covered. And the latest development here is that he's actually been released from prison and now going to jail. And that's something that you don't really hear every day, Josh. What exactly does this mean?
It's pretty interesting for those that didn't live here, because that's the only way you would have missed this case. This was a nationwide case because Justin Ross Harris, who was a pretty reasonable middle class, upper middle class, young parent with a kid, no really big outstanding questions or allegations, at least until the investigation, where his child tragically died in the back of his SUV. And upon investigation from Cobb County, the lead district attorney at the time went very aggressively against Justin Ross Harris. This was a very high-profile trial with novel and interesting issues. Judge Mary Staley Clark was the trial judge there in Cobb County, one of the first women to ever sit on the bench, and certainly something extra meaningful because this case involved the death of a child. After Justin Ross Harris was convicted and sentenced to life, I believe without parole, this case went up to the Georgia Court of Appeals and Supreme Court, where eventually his murder conviction was vacated. That was due to a variety of appellate issues, including actions taken by Mary Staley, or rather Mary Staley Clark, the judge of the case. When that sentence was vacated, Cobb County's district attorney elected not to retry Justin Ross Harris for the death of the child, and that was buffered by the fact that his remaining sentences remained in effect, and those sentences were 12 years. He has now served about 10 of those years and has been released by the Georgia Department of Corrections back to apparently Cobb County. I don't have an exact answer why he was sent back to Cobb County. I'm working on that now. It does appear he has a couple years left on some of the underlying charges that were less serious than the murder, for which he remains convicted. There was a 12-year sentence when you got all of them put together consecutively, and it looks like he has about 2 years left on that. But right now, Justin Ross Harris is back in Cobb County. He's out of the state prison system, and that's really unusual.
Very unusual.
Most people, when released from the prison, do not go back to the county where they were convicted unless there's additional sentencing, additional cases, additional issues. They're released on probation, parole, or some other discharge.
So apparently he had moved from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to Atlanta for work in 2012, and then he told police on the morning of June 18th of 2014 he forgot to drop off his 22-month-old son, Cooper, at daycare. Instead, he drove right to his job as a web developer for Home Depot, left the child in his car seat, is what he told investigators. So it was about 10 years ago, and here we are. It's June 18th, so it's 10 years since his little boy, passed away in that way, and he went to prison in 2016, and now you've got this new development where he's been released from prison actually on Sunday, which was Father's Day, and then he then later on, a short time later, was rebooked. He was booked again. I shouldn't say rebooked, but booked into Cobb County's jail. So yeah, I mean, Josh, I know you have some contacts with some of the attorneys involved in his case, and it's unusual, and I know we're trying to get to the bottom of why this was done, because he's been released only to go back to a different form of imprisonment.
Yeah, and the 10 years really is on the nose. He received credit for every day that he was incarcerated, and that begins at the moment of arrest. So there was some sort of triggering event with the sentence that prompted him to be released by the state prison system. I believe he was serving in Smith State Prison, a prison that is known now because of the very unfortunate murder-suicide that just occurred there, as well as the warden last year being arrested in an investigation for running a contraband contraband scheme. It is a notoriously dangerous prison. I can't confirm that with Smith, but I believe that's where he was. He is now back in Cobb County, and I expect that over the next day or two, we'll figure out a lot more details as to why he is back in Cobb County. They can't go retry him for any of these cases because he was sentenced. The sentence was appealed. Rulings have been made, and it would be very untimely.
Yeah. Okay, Josh, obviously there are a lot of developments there. We're going to keep following the latest there. But, you know, there's other news that we want to talk to our viewers about and share with you. I mean, the headline itself. Okay, so we've been live streaming the YSL trial for you guys. And, we've been promising you the gavel-to-gavel coverage. Some days we know court can be slow. Well, today was not one of those days. Not at all. I mean, just read this headline. I was typing up the headline here. The YSL judge denies the request to remove himself. So, yes, that was what this morning's hearing was primarily about, among some other issues. Judge Ural Glanville heard a motion by defense attorney Brian Steele, the attorney for Young Thug, Jeffrey Williams, to remove himself, and he denied it. He said, no, I'm not removing myself.
This case, you will never see anything else like it, probably because people are going to work to prevent another case of this type from ever happening. I'm hearing a lot of pushback from other members of the criminal justice system on all sides about what a mess this trial has become and how expensive it is. But yes, this morning, we heard the very rare motion for a recusal of the trial judge held with that trial judge and not in front of a separate independent judge, as is statutorily explained in the Georgia laws. Generally, when you are filing a motion to recuse, that motion cannot and should not be ethically heard by the judge that is subject to that motion. The system is set up with very specific codified rules where that judge, the judge in question, the trial judge, has to transfer that motion to an independent judge for hearing whether the trial judge has justifications or whether there are justifications for recusal. In this case specifically, Brian Steele, on behalf of Young Thug and other lawyers with other defendants, have alleged Judge Ural Glanville has become very biased in his treatment of the parties. That he is showing favoritism towards the state. The defense alleges that the ex parte meeting that happened recently was solid evidence that this is unfair.
Let me just, because you mentioned ex parte, and I'm sure a lot of people are like, what? Well, it means, without a party present. Essentially, Brian Steele is accusing the judge of having a meeting without him. Brian Steele is a party. He's part of the defense party with Jeffrey Williams being the defendant, Young Thug. He's accusing the judge of having a meeting with, I believe it was a witness, Kenneth Copeland, and the prosecution as well, without him, without the defense.
Yeah, we're based on the idea that court is open and transparent, and the communications between the parties have to be open and transparent in general. There needs to be specific exceptions for ex parte communications, which is, like you said, a private communication that not everybody is looped in on or present for. What happened in this case is that due to Kenneth Copeland's reluctance to testify, Judge Glanville decided to have a private meeting in his chambers with only Kenneth Copeland, his lawyer, Miss Bumpus, the 2 district attorneys from the state, a court reporter, and a couple other judicial staffers from Judge Glanville's office. Obviously, the defense attorneys were not notified about this meeting, nor were they included.
And is that allowed?
No, that is very much far against the rules. There are some extraordinarily narrow pathways where you can have ex parte communications, but those are strongly statutorily and common law defined. It is a risk for a judge to ever wander in and allow this kind of communications, because wrongful ex parte communications are a prime pathway for reversal on appeal.
And we know that Mr. Steele then motioned for mistrial. That was denied, so we're carrying on. And the case is continued, obviously no mistrial. And then there's the hearing today where the judge rules on himself.
Yes.
He rules, no, I'm not going to remove myself. Is that going to be grounds for a mistrial? Is that going to be grounds to maybe appeal this case sometime down the road?
It absolutely is added to the long list of questionable judgments deserving appellate review that the defense is going to present at that right opportunity in probably the most massive appeal this state has ever known. The reasons for appeal are legion, this being one of the most novel and important due to its rarity. This was a witness that was already sworn and in the process of testifying, and the judge basically set up an inquisition in his private chambers without the defense about that witness's testimony. Brian Steele in the defense now argues the judge himself is a witness to the state and the prosecution, and the witness cannot be the judge. The legal universe is up in arms about this due to the unique and novel pathway Judge Glanville has chosen. Almost uniformly, the criminal defense and bluntly prosecution and civil bars have come out questioning Judge Glanville's decision-making process here because it does not appear to the casual or expert observer that he is acting in an independent manner.
All right. Thank you so much, Attorney Josh Schiffer. We so appreciate you joining us. And just a reminder for our viewers, we are streaming the YSL trial gavel to gavel here on Atlanta News First Plus. And if you can't find it on our primary stream, maybe because the newscast is going on, go to our secondary stream, our special events stream, and then you can find it. We also have a tab on our website where you can find all the latest on the YSL trial and all of our other top stories. Thanks for joining us.